of the stuff was taken back at the reunion.
I didn't take him back. Whoever did, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
So you think we making it up?
Yes, I do.
No, everyone was told the same thing.
So what?
That we can only have like the hats.
I didn't get no She by Shereé gifts. Still.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 15, Episode 10. And before we get started, let me just let you know that Shereé, you tried it. I am so sick and tired of Shereé constantly lying and deflecting every time she's called out for her behavior. That last scene really pissed me off, and I was so upset for Drew. I don't care if you like Drew or not, you cannot deny that she was right in what she was saying. The fact that Shereé has gone season after season after season, never apologizing for when she's wrong, that's a problem. And to add insult to injury, you have Sonya, who's up Shereé and Marlo's behinds. I'm just like, the three of them can go. But Shereé, you are so full of it with this whole healing trip. And now when you're called out for your BS, you can't own up to it. The audacity. I've never liked Shereé. I peeped her nasty attitude from jump. Season 1, Episode 1, she came on talking about, oh, I'm part of Atlanta's wealthy elite. I'm that girl. I'm the it girl. I have all this money. I have a creative director, a chef, 3 housekeepers, 2 nannies. I was like, girl, you don't have that kind of money. I already knew from the beginning that she was putting on for the cameras and that it was a lie. And sure enough, I was correct. Because by Season 2, they were all gone and that house was foreclosed on and the car was repossessed. Well, she thought that she was getting that big divorce settlement from Bob, but we see what happened with that. But anyhow, let's just jump right on into this recap because I have a lot to say and you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. Now, we open up this episode with it being the day before Thanksgiving. So we see Candy doing a food drive. We know that Candy has a charity called Candy Cares, and she's always giving back. I remember a few seasons ago, I think it was that season with Bolo when they had that bachelorette party for Cynthia, when she had that Candy Cares Foundation and she had all the ladies come and make up bags of food for the community. And one thing about Candy, whether you like her or not, she does give back a lot more than what these other housewives can say. But again, I digress. So now we see Kenya at home. She has her family over, and we see that Brooklyn is meeting her grandfather for the first time. Now, that was really touching. She was so happy to see him. She gave him a big hug. He was happy to see his granddaughter. Just too cute. Now, for some reason, I don't know why I thought that Kenya's dad had already met Brooklyn. But finding out that that was Brooklyn's first time meeting her grandfather, I said, look, as long as she's seeing her family, I'm happy about that. Brooklyn is adorable. And like I told y'all, every single time I see Kenya's daughter or Wendy's daughter, Cameron, my ovaries start flipping. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I want a baby girl. So here's where we get into all the BS, right? We now flip to Drew and Ralph. They're at home. We see that there are chefs in the kitchen. The table is set up beautifully, and we find out that this whole brunch was Ralph's idea. He wants all the ladies to get along before they go off on their trip to Portugal, hosted by Shereé, and he's invited all the ladies over with their husbands, boyfriends, dates. So Drew is pretty excited about this, but she's also like, it's kind of unlike Ralph to do this, but whatever. And I don't know if it's just me or the fact that since we already know that they're in the midst of a divorce, every time we see a scene with Ralph and Drew together, it just feels so fake. Like they're both acting. I don't know if I'm describing it right, but it just feels like they're both putting on for the cameras. But anyhow, we see everybody arriving. Candy and Todd get there first, then Sonya and Ross. And now we see Courtney and her baby's father, Bryce. Remember, he was in that group Groove Theory. And Candy's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that that was Courtney's baby daddy. Like, I know Bryce. Now we know that Candy knows everybody in the music industry, so I was not surprised that she knew who Bryce was. And a quick side note, why is Courtney in every single scene? Kourtney gives nothing. I'm not even trying to be mean, but Kourtney's not interesting. We still know very little about her. The fact that she's on Shereé, Marlo, and Sonya's side, I'm just not here for her. Season 16, we don't need to see her come back in any capacity.
No.
And I can't get over the fact that Kourtney's still in this it's complicated situationship with her baby's father after 2 decades. No, ma'am. Like I said in a previous recap, you stayed 19 years too long. But anyhow, Candy had me screaming. She said, oh my gosh, Bryce is so nice. How did he ever put up with Kourtney? So now we see Kenya and Shereé arrive. And when they both sat down, Sonya's asking Shereé how her Thanksgiving was. Sheree's like, oh my gosh, it was great. I cooked. I had a really nice time being with my family. So now we see Shereé ask Kenya, where's her man at? So Kenya's like, oh, he's working. Of course, Shereé has to be shady in the confessional, talking about, oh, Kenya claims that she's dating this new guy. I mean, where he at though? Now, one thing about it, and I have to be fair, when it comes to men, love, romance, dating, Shereé, Marlo, and Kenya don't have room to talk or shade anybody because we've seen their mishaps in their love life. Shereé, especially you, Bob Whitfield, Tyrone, who was in prison for 6 or 7 years, and played you on national TV like a fiddle, I might add. And now you're with Martell from Love and Marriage Huntsville, a man who dogged out his wife or his now ex-wife, who he had 4 kids with, and then he dogged out his mistress, who he got pregnant. So I said again, Shereé, not too much. Shereé is a really weird friend, and I really think that there's some jealousy on her part because I noticed that for somebody who claims to be Kenya's friend, she is always shading her. It's weird. It seems like she's a better friend to Marlo than she is to Kenya. But it makes sense though because her and Marlo are one and the same. But my whole thing is, why are you asking where Roy's at when Martell's not there either? I don't understand Sheree's logic. So we see Marlo and Scott Lee arrive, and when I tell you that Kenya had me screaming, she was like, what is he wearing? What is this sweater? She was not here for it. So Candy's like, oh, I know Scott Lee. I've met him. He's a really cool guy, really nice, a great chef. But I'm surprised that Marlo's with him because she's all about she's not having sex unless a man is spending something. Real whore-like behavior. So I just said, now, Candy, we all know that this is fake. It's for a storyline. She probably paid Scott Lee a few $100s to appear on camera with her because we've been dragging her for the past decade about why we haven't seen her with a man or a date or anything. So I think that she wants to give us a storyline and a fake potential love interest. But don't get it twisted. I'm sure that Scott Lee isn't her type. And if I'm being completely honest, I really can't picture Marlo with a boyfriend or a husband. I just feel like Marlo is so emotionally stunted. I think that she's too in love with money and things and status. Like, I can't really see her being vulnerable. So as they're waiting around for their food, they start talking about Candy's movie. Kenya's asking her how it's going, and Candy says, oh, it's coming along fine. We're just working on casting. So Kenya makes a joke about how she's still waiting on her offer. And now Candy reveals that Drew is going to be the leading lady in the movie. So Kenya was really surprised to hear that. She's like, Drew? Drew is the leading lady in the movie? Excuse me, what? Now, we already know what the movie's about. It's about a married couple giving each other a hall pass. And when Candy said, look, for the leading lady, I wanted somebody who's young and sweet and naive, somebody that you wouldn't expect to get turned out. So now Kenya brings up that when she was in the movie Twa, she put threesomes on the map. Now, if you remember that movie always came on BET real late at night. I remember I would sneak and watch it. I was like 9 or 10 at the time. I had no business watching that. Now, don't look at me like that because I know that you guys were sneaking and watching that movie too. I feel like BET always played that. They always played that, Players Club, or The Best Man. Yeah, I feel like they were always playing one of those three movies. And it was before Tyler Perry took off. Now, in my personal opinion, I just thought that Kenya was being silly. I didn't think that she was actually salty about Drew getting the role. I thought that it was all in good fun. So when Drew got shady and was like, I mean, Kenya, when was the last time you were in a movie? Wasn't Twa 22 years ago? Like, girl, give it up. I was like, now, Drew, I thought that you and Kenya were good friends now, so why all this shade? And also, sis, I don't think that she was upset at you being the leading lady. I thought that it was all a joke. I took it as she was just being funny. I didn't think that she was actually trying to disparage you over getting the leading role over her. But I guess you took it the wrong way and you wanted to get shady, so here we are. And I said, Drew, not too much, because I had forgotten all about you since the game. Had you not gotten on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, we would not be checking for you. I always find it funny when the ladies will shade each other on the show about their career. And it's like, that might be the case, but at the end of the day, you guys are all on this show right now. So whether or not somebody's career was flat for a while, whether or not you have more accolades, you're still on a Real Housewives franchise together, collecting the same check. So you guys look kind of foolish trying to shade each other when you all landed on the same show right now. And Drew, don't forget, we know that you auditioned for this show 3 times. So again, mama, I wouldn't say too much about Kenya's career. Just saying. I don't care what anybody says. This is how I know that Marlo is a grade A hater and she is high-key obsessed with Kenya. Because when Roy FaceTimed Kenya and Kenya turned the phone around, she's like, hey, Roy, say hi to everybody. And here goes Marlo saying, oh, I know Roy. I went out on a date with him once. And I was like, you just can't help yourself. Why say that? And you were trying to be messy. And then you have Marlo saying, oh, let me see if he still has the same number. Like, you're just such a loser. Why was that needed? Why are you talking about what happened years ago? And Marlo really can't help herself because she went on and on and on about it. She's like, oh yeah, Roy was in my DMs way back in the day. And she's like, oh yeah, Candy, I know you know about DMs. And Candy's like, okay, girl, really? So now you have Marlo talking about he had hit her up some years ago when her and Cynthia were doing a movie together. She was deciding if she should wear a bodysuit or a dress, and he DM'd her saying, oh, pick the bodysuit. And then he asked her out for lunch. And I'm sorry, but it just felt very attention-seeking on Marlo's behalf because it was one lunch date, nothing happened. If we did not make it to the altar, if it was not a serious relationship, if somebody that I know ends up dating that person, have at it, enjoy yourself, best of luck to you. But I'm not going to sit up there and feel the need to say, oh, well, girl, he asked me out first. He DM'd me first. Like, I'm not that type of girl. Like, I don't know. I didn't like that. And Marlo really shows how hateful she is every single time. Because when she said, enjoy my leftovers, bitch, I said, you want to be Kenya so bad. It really eats you up. You are so jealous of her. You want to feel like you've one-upped her in some area. How is that your leftovers when it was just one date? And Marlo, you want to sit up here and shade somebody talking about some leftovers, but let's talk about how you were trying to get with Nene's leftovers. Remember that? Remember how I think it was at the season 9 or 10 reunion, it was revealed you were trying to hook up with Nene's ex-boyfriend. Remember that Italian guy who bought Nene the watch?
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
Marlo was out there trying to date him on the side, trying to get him to pay for her Neiman Marcus credit card bill. But you want to say, enjoy my leftovers. Marlo is a weirdo. So Kenya's back at the table, the food comes out, and my mouth was watering. They had salmon, shrimp, crab cakes. It looked amazing. Like, I'm salivating as we speak. Ralph, you might be full of it, but that food did look good. This brunch was definitely a good idea. And here's why I get annoyed with Sonya. Because Sonya has that pick me, loser energy. She just can't leave well enough alone. She's talking about, oh my gosh, what are the chances that Kenya and Marlo dated the same guy? Girl, do you know what dating means? Going out on one lunch date does not equal dating. Kenya and Roy are dating. It's been months. Marlo and Roy went out on one date. There's a difference. And just leave it alone. Why say anything? You know that Kenya cannot stand Marlo. They don't get along. They're not friends. So why keep trying to stir the pot? It's like Sonya is so desperate. She has this thirsty energy about her. And Bravo, please do not bring her back. She is boring and she tries way too hard. And I loved how Kenya brushed that off. She was like, look, I'm glad he did see that Marlo was not it, and now he's free to date me. So I don't even care. I said, exactly. So now you have Shereé jumping in to stir up some mess, and she wants to know about this lawsuit that Drew's in regarding not paying her chef. Now I said, Shereé Whitfield, the audacity and the gall for you of all people to question anybody about unpaid bills. We all know that you do not like to pay people. Since season 1, it's always been an issue. That's why it took you 84 years to get Chateau Shereé built. You cheated your contractors, cheated your landscapers. They all quit and had to take your butt to court. So Drew explains that it was this girl who was dying to cook for Drew and her family. Drew gave her a chance, and the woman had hair in the food, so she didn't pay her. So she's like, look, she's out here lying on me, trying to make me look bad to the press, but that's not the case at all. Like, I pay my bills, but I'm not going to pay for this messed up service where there's hair in my food. Like, absolutely not. So now Shereé wants to know, how much is she being sued for? And Drew says, well, only $1,000. Now, Drew, I was expecting you to say $5,000, $7,500, $10,000. But $1,000, just give the girl the money. Cashapp, Zelle her, Venmo her, write her a check, wire transfer. But to hire and retain lawyers for a measly $1,000, that's just stupid. And even everybody else was like, really, Drew, $1,000? You're going to court for this? And then you have Shereé trying to be funny, and she's talking about, oh, well, you are paying this chef today, right? And I said, again, Shereé, you're out of order. You're somebody who does not do right by people. You cheat people out of money. You do not pay folks who work for you. So again, the audacity of you to now try to shade Drew, like, oh yeah, girl, you're going to pay this chef? Stop it. And if I were Drew, I would have been pissed off too, like the audacity. So now Shereé does a toast for the girls' trip to Portugal. She's like, it's going to be about healing. I can't wait. Then, of course, you have Sonya cutting in, trying to be this pseudo peacemaker. And she's like, is everybody willing to talk it out and try to get along? And it's like, Sonya, shut up. Nobody asked you to take the place of this peacemaker. You're not even a peacemaker for real. You're just a troublemaker. You are two-faced. You're a flip-flopper. So just stop. You don't care about anybody actually getting along and being friends. You're trying to stir up the mess just like your good friends Shereé and Marlo. I'm so sick of her, y'all. I don't know how many more times I can say it, but I really do not care for Sonya. Now, Shereé's saying that she's happy that Courtney's going to be going on the trip too. So Courtney says that she's happy to join in and she can't wait for the trip. And she's like, yeah, we're going to have such a good time. Now, mind you, Courtney is sitting right next to Kenya. So she turns to Kenya and she's touching Kenya's arm. She's like, oh my gosh, Kenya, we're going to have a good time. And now Kenya's like, Courtney, can you stop touching me? You've touched me 3 times already.
I need you to keep your hands to yourself. I know you're touchy, but we're not there yet.
I didn't touch you.
No, you did 3 times.
did.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I would like you not to do that. That's all.
Courtney is visibly embarrassed, and even Drew says, look, Courtney, respect her boundaries, don't touch her. And Courtney looks really upset. While I do not care for Courtney, I find her to be very irritating. I lost all respect for her when she tried to pick that fight with Candy in the first episode. I'm a very affectionate person. I'm very touchy-feely. If I meet, I'm a hugger. In conversation, I will like touch you. I understand that, she didn't mean any harm, but you have to be weary if you're around somebody that doesn't see it for you. Like, obviously, if I were to be around somebody who we have some friction, I'm not doing that. So I was like, yeah, Courtney, you gotta learn how to read the room. You and Kenya haven't been on the best of terms. Kenya doesn't like you like that. So yeah, I would have just, maybe kept my hands to myself. And I don't know if it's just me, but Courtney also has a very desperate energy too. You can tell that she is longing to be a full-time cast member come next season and that she wants to be in every single scene. So now we jump to the day of the trip. Everybody's at the airport, and of course, Sonia is relaying the bad news that Candy has a stomach bug and she's not feeling well. Now, I felt so bad for Candy. I could not imagine being on an 8-hour flight with my stomach being torn up. I would have had to come the next day because I refuse to travel and I'm not feeling well. And there is no worse pain than stomach pain. So I really felt for her. So now they touched down in Portugal, and Candy is like, I cannot get to that hotel fast enough. My stomach was messed up from the time that we got on the plane to the time that we landed. And again, I felt so bad. I said, girl, I really thought that was messed up of Marlo to make fun of Candy being ill when she was like, yeah, she was in the bathroom for all that time. Just disgusting, like, ew, like, who does that? And it's like, Marlo, how old are you? You're making fun of somebody because they had some stomach issues. So what would you prefer her to do? Have an accident in first class? Isn't that what a bathroom is for? Like, you just sound so dumb trying to clown somebody who had issues. I was just so over it. Like, Marlo is truly a hateful person. So as they're on their way to the hotel, Shereé says that she's so happy that they're there and it's only the best for them. And she says that this group needs healing and help. I said, take a shot every time Shereé says healing. I mean, Shereé said healing about 5 million times in this episode. And the fact that Shereé wants to say that this group needs help in healing, but meanwhile, Shereé needs the most help. I'm like, Shereé, do you not see yourself? If anybody needs healing, it's you. Let's get to the root of why you can't seem to pay your bills, pay the people who work for you, and take accountability when you're wrong. Let's start there. And when they showed Shereé in that confessional, I said, Shereé, what did you do to your face? Shereé got her nose redone. She obviously got another facelift or some Botox. The face is pulled so tight. Now, I am all for cosmetic surgery. I am all for a good nip tuck, a little tweak here and there. I am for it. But if you're going to get it done, make sure that it looks good. Shereé, I thought that Shereé's face was fine before. She had already gotten her nose done. And she was getting Botox and it looked great. She looked like a mix of Kim Zolciak and a cat lady. I said, okay, girl. And she's lying about that, saying that she didn't get any work done. I said, okay. All right, Shereé. It's just your world, I guess, and we're all living in it, right? So they all arrive at the hotel. The hotel is gorgeous, by the way. And now it's time for them to have some lunch. So we see Drew telling everybody that Ralph is actually in Vegas. So they're all like, girl, what? Why is he in Vegas? Is it for business? Now I said, I don't know what Ralph does for work other than mooch off of his wife. So yeah, is this for business or is this for cheating? I'm going to go with cheating. So Drew says that one of the producers of her music video runs the Magic Mike Chocolate City review in Vegas, and she suggested that Ralph try out an audition for it. So they're all like, hell no. That whole story made no sense. I was like, what? Even Drew knew that it made no sense because Drew was like, every time Ralph goes out of town, I feel a bit nervous about what he's doing. And I said, yeah, this is the same man who went to Tampa for 3 days, didn't tell you where he was at or who he was with, and still won't tell you now. So I would be very worried too. Well, no, actually, I wouldn't be worried because I would have divorced Ralph a long time ago. So I wouldn't even have had that issue of worrying about if he's cheating or not. I would have said, shout out to everybody. I had fun a long time ago.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun. I gotta be good.
All I can say is I'm just happy that Drew is finally coming to her senses and leaving this man now. Better late than never. But I just said this whole thing is a hot mess. Ralph is so full of it. So now lunch is over and now it's time for everybody to check out their rooms. Now, Shereé, I'm going to pay you one compliment. Don't get used to it. Write this down in your calendars because this won't happen again. But Shereé, you did a great job with accommodations. The hotel was gorgeous, a stunning 5-star hotel, and everybody had a fantastic room with a gorgeous view. So I said, you did that. So we see Monyetta and Drew talking in Drew's room, and Monyetta's like, you know that right over there, that's Africa. So Drew's like, oh my gosh, no way, have you been? So Monyetta says that she's been many times. She even has an orphanage there. And Drew's like, oh my gosh, like I would love to go to Africa one day. I've only been to South Africa. Now I said, Drew, these ladies need to brush up on their geography immediately, like yesterday. Y'all are too grown. I was like, Drew, really? And in last week's episode, you had Kenya talking about, oh my gosh, we're going to Portugal. I can't wait to go to Spain. And I was like, again, did you guys not grow up with those globes? Remember? They would be on like a teacher's desk or people would have them at home. I'm like, yeah, buy a globe, please. Because the fact that you have Drew saying what she's saying, this one saying that Portugal's in Spain, it's a mess. So now we see Drew and Monyetta talking about the trip so far. And Drew's like, Shereé sitting up here saying that she wants to heal and mend things, but now she wants to be shady about me and this whole chef situation. And it's like, she's one to talk when there's a long list of people that she hasn't paid. I don't appreciate that. And I said, Drew, exactly. I'd feel a type of way too if I had the biggest cheapskate trying to clown me about money when they have a long history of cheating everybody who they come across out of money. We'd have an issue. So now we see Kenya and Candy talking in Candy's room, and Kenya brings up how she has another divorce proceeding when they come back from the trip, and Candy's like, girl, I am so tired of you and this long ass drawn out divorce. When is it going to be over? So Kenya jokes around that she's been going through this divorce longer than she's been married. And I was like, yeah, you guys are only married for what, like 2 years? And this divorce has taken like 3 years or 4 years? A mess. Similar to Bethany Frankel when she divorced that clown. They were only married for 2 years, but their divorce took 7 years. Again, ladies, especially if you have a little something something, stop dating and marrying down. It does not work. It doesn't. But that's another video for another day. So since they're on the topic of marriage and divorce, Candy brings up the whole thing about Marlo going out on a date with Roy. She wants to know if Kenya was weirded out by it. And Kenya says, no, not at all. Roy had already told me when we got together. Like, I already knew. It was one date. It didn't go anywhere. That's it. That's all. Who cares? So now we jump to Sonia and Marlo talking. And Sonia says, well, I think it's just so funny that when the whole thing about Martell being in Kenya's DMs, that blew up. But now when it comes out about Roy and your DMs, they want to brush it under the rug. And I'm like, there's a difference. Martell has a track record of dogging and being a womanizer. And Kenya trying to warn Shereé, like, look, sis, this man was in my DMs. He's a clout chaser. He's probably in your DMs for the wrong reasons. That's what a good friend does. Marlo, on the other hand, is being hateful and she wants to get a rise out of Kenya. That's the only reason why she said that, because she wanted to get under Kenya's skin. Now, before anybody comes for me, in my recap for the first episode, I do remember saying that if I were Kenya, I wouldn't have brought it up either, because I just feel like nothing happened. But in the case of Martell, I feel like he's just such a slimy individual. You might want to warn your friend, like, look, girl, you might want to watch out for him because he has ulterior motives. So I understand that, yes, Kenya made a big deal about the DM situation, but on the other hand, it's a bit different. And I feel like Kenya's motives were pure, while Marlo blurting out that she went out with Roy, that was done just to be petty and evil. And for Marlo to try to shade Roy, talking about, oh, well, I thought that Roy was corny and he's a perfect match for Kenya. I was like, girl, shut up. And if he was so corny, then why were you so pressed to tell everybody that you went out on that date with him? I'll wait. If I felt like I went out with a man who was corny, I wouldn't tell anybody. I would keep that to myself and never reveal that. He wasn't that corny for you to say, oh, well, girl, we went out for lunch. He was in my DMs. Let me see if I still have his number. So now we see everybody getting ready for the evening. They're going out to dinner. And now we see them all arrive at the restaurant. Now, the restaurant looked really nice, but I was screaming because when they sat down, Kenya was like, can we get a round of shots? So she's like, yeah, let's get a round of tequila shots. And the waiter did not understand because he brought them back some tequila drinks. They were like, these are not shots. So for the most part, the dinner seems to be going well. And now Shereé interrupts and she brings us more BS about healing and how she wants everybody to get things off of their chest and try to be friends. And I was like, Shereé, shut up. Can we just enjoy the night? My God. And for you to be talking about healing, you need to go and try and heal yourself. It's just so ridiculous. The fact that one of the most vile people is up here talking about healing each other and trying to be friends and trying to be better people. So Courtney interjects and she says, well, since we're letting it all out, Kenya, I want to address you for a minute. The other day at Drew's brunch, when you told me to stop touching you, I felt a way about that. And Shereé told me earlier today how you feel about me. You feel like you don't connect with me. And I feel like we've never had a problem. I haven't gotten to know you. What's the issue? So Kenya says, look, Courtney, I just feel like when you started touching me, the first few times was okay, but then later on, I felt like you were being condescending. So Courtney's confused, and then she says that when it comes to Kenya, she gets big mean girl energy from her, and Kenya pretty much ignores her. She turns to Drew and she's like, Drew, thank you so much for telling Courtney that she violated my boundaries. Like, I appreciate it. So now Drew steps in and she says, look, Courtney, you and I talked about it. I told you, and I also told you about Candy's faces. Don't take it personally. That's just how she is. Now, who knew that Courtney was so sensitive, seeing as how she came onto the scene calling Candy ghetto and talking about Candy wanted to be her friend and accusing Candy of lying and all this stuff and bringing the ghetto out. So I'm just kind of like, you were talking all this stuff in the first episode, but now you want to turn around and talk about, oh my gosh, you know, mean girl energy and I feel this way. She's making faces at me. I said, again, who knew that Courtney was so hypersensitive? So now Drew decides that she wants to confront Shereé and she says, Shereé, can I address something with you? So she says, look, Shereé, you and I have come a long way. I thought that me and you were getting on a better path, but apparently not. When you came over to my house for brunch the other day, I didn't appreciate you bringing up the lawsuit between me and this chef. It felt really intentional. It felt really mean. It felt shady. Like, I don't appreciate that. This is a very serious matter for me and my family. So one thing about Shereé, every time you're calling her out and laying out the facts, she just sits there looking stupid. She's not saying anything. She's trying to act like she's not listening to Drew. And I was just so irritated already. So now Drew says, well, I heard from the other girls that you were talking about me behind my back about the whole entire lawsuit. And once again, it's not fair because this affects my entire family. And I cannot stand how Shereé interrupts people when she's being called out. So she's like, no, well, first of all, you lied on me. You lied on me after the reunion saying that I took back the clothes. So Drew's like, we already addressed this a few weeks ago. I thought we were over that. I didn't lie. You did take the clothes back. So now Kandi jumps in to defend Drew and she says, but Shereé, Drew's not lying. The She by Shereé merchandise was taken away. I didn't get anything. Even Kenya jumps in to agree. So now Shereé's like, well, that's your problem because, you know, people did get their stuff. And I'm saying, Shereé, why can't you just own it? Why is that so difficult? And then, of course, all Shereé can say is, well, Marlo got all this stuff. Well, Marlo got stuff, so that doesn't matter. That's on you. If you didn't get anything, that's on you.
I got at least 4 or 5 pieces. Easy. I have a sweatshirt. I have another hat. Baby, I love my She by Shereé gear.
Yeah, but me and you talked about that confiscation conversation that already happened. I'm talking about now we move forward, correct?
So Drew reiterates again that there were Shereé's handlers on set asking them to return the stuff back. Kenya co-signs again that people were on set saying that they have to return the stuff. Even Sonya says that she didn't get any She by Shereé.
There were people with Shereé and they said, no, you can't have the bag. And I saw them taking things and putting it back on the rack.
Someone asked us to return the gear. That's a fact.
I never got a hat, a bag. I ain't get nothing.
So Drew says, look, Shereé, all I'm saying is that you're discussing a lawsuit that affects my family. It's not cool, okay? Can you just acknowledge that? So Shereé says, well, it doesn't feel good now, does it? And Drew is visibly hurt. And I was like, Shereé, what's wrong with you?
Go and talk about something that's happening to me and my family and never come to me personally.
It doesn't feel good, does it?
So you're trying to teach me a lesson?
No, I'm not trying
You're trying to be a tit for tat? Girl, bye. We already talked about it. So you just aren't capable of moving forward.
And you can't just say, you know what, Drew, you're right. I'm sorry. That was really shady of me. I shouldn't have done that. And you did the same thing with Kandi a few episodes ago when Kandi said, but Shereé, you said some awful things about me, so when I make a joke about you and your brand, you have to be able to take it. Shereé has a malfunction of some sort where she is unable to own up to any of her wrongdoings. Shereé talks about people like dogs. She makes all these shady remarks. Remember last season, she was up there talking about, yeah, I mean, Kandi was sucking D in locker rooms and this, that, and the third. She was laughing and co-signing what Marlo was saying about her, about how she's a slut and a whore and a hoe. But yeah, when somebody says one thing about her, now it's the worst thing in the world. I can't stand people like that. Shereé is a perfect example of she can dish it out, but she can't take it. If I'm being honest, I'm very curious to find out more about Shereé's upbringing, because there's something wrong. So at this point, Drew is irate. She's like, Shereé, you're hosting a healing trip, but you won't even heal your damn self. Like, what's going on? And Shereé's being real smug, and she's like, well, I guess I can't heal myself then. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I guess I can't. And at this point, Drew is over it. And for Shereé, who's one of the biggest liars, for her to say, Drew, you're a liar, I said, I probably would have left the trip. I'll be damned. I would not be anywhere near Shereé Whitfield. I was so irritated for Drew. I couldn't believe it. I said, to be called a liar by Shereé, that has to be the biggest joke of the century. So Shereé and Drew are still going at it, and Drew's asking Shereé once again if Shereé can just acknowledge how she feels. And Shereé refuses. She's like, oh, can I have some French fries? Just completely dismissing Drew. So now you have Kenya say that she thinks that Drew and Shereé have a big sister, little sister relationship. And I said, no, ma'am, because sisters don't do this. So at this point, Drew can see that Shereé is not going to own up to anything. So she leaves the table and she storms out the restaurant and she's crying. So they're all like, oh my gosh, what happened? We see Sonya running after Drew, and we see Marlo making sense for once in her life. And she's like, Shereé, this is your trip. It's your dinner. Go outside and fix this. Like, you're the hostess. Go outside and make things right. Like, don't eat your dinner, but go outside and make sure that she's okay. And I said, now it's a sad day when I'm saying that I agree with Marlo. That won't happen again, but I said, it shows me that I guess Marlo can get it together maybe once every 10 episodes. And then we see Kenya running after Drew as well. And now we see a to be continued on our screen, and that's where the episode ends. Now, again, I felt bad for Drew. I understood her tears because those are tears of frustration. You have your husband gaslighting you. Now you have this idiot gaslighting you. And the fact that Shereé just can't own it and she's calling you a liar, I think that would send anybody over the edge. I completely understood it. But y'all, that was my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.